Good morning, everyone. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, your tour guide to the ag commodities. So good to be with you here this morning. Well, it is Thursday, and that means it's weekly export sales day, and that means it's also time to bring in Brian Hoops. He's with Midwest Market Solutions in Springfield, Missouri, at the headquarters there. Brian, let's take an excursion through the weekly export sales numbers, shall we? I bet they're exciting this week. Let's take a look. We'll go to the corn, which is, wow, net reductions of 23,100 tons. That's not going to get it done. Soybeans, 116,100 tons. Soy meal at 391,900 tons. Now, that was actually an improvement from last week. Soy oil, 6,200 tons. That was kind of meh. The wheat, 200,000 tons, was not all that exciting, but it was kind of in the middle of expectations. Also, we had numbers for sorghum, cotton, and rice. Grain sorghum, we had 5,700 tons this week. Upland cotton was at 215,500 running bales, so that was an improvement. And the rice came in at 30,300 tons this week. So that corn with a negative number, that seems to really just kind of stick in the craw of bullish traders, and this is back-to-back weeks at least. Hasn't had a very good run here of corn sales lately.
No, it's pretty disappointing, but we knew it was coming because we had a private export sale cancellation last week by China, and that is reflected in these sales. So it's about 3 million bushels overall. Mexico bought about 8.5 million, and China canceled about 13 million bushels of corn that they had purchased. So that gives us that net reduction. So I guess here the good news about these export sales, we are 95% dependent upon weather for our pricing instead of export business. That's the only real silver lining here that I have out of these numbers. These are really disappointing. The soybean number is well below what we need to be on a weekly basis to hit the USDA forecast. They just lowered their corn forecast. And of course, over the last 4 weeks with these cancellations, we're nowhere close to being where we need to be on a weekly basis to hit that revised lower forecast for corn. So these numbers from the old crop standpoint, disappointing. Believe it or not, Germany was the largest buyer of U.S. soybeans last week. So that's how bad these export numbers are. And when we talk about lowering export forecasts for this old crop marketing season, to kind of give you a perspective on how our new crop sales are off to a start. Soybean sales were pretty poor this last year, and they are about they're only about 94 million bushels sold for this new marketing year. At this time, we were almost 400 million bushels of soybeans sold a year ago. So we are not off to a good start as far as any of our export numbers go for corn, soybeans. The wheat numbers are about similar to what they were last year, which were very poor, and probably will be just as poor this next marketing season, with Argentina and Russia crops being larger, cutting into our world export markets. So nothing really good to say out of these export numbers, except let's look at weather, and that is going to give us our determining price influence coming after this Memorial Day holiday and almost entirely through the month of June.
Let's go through these prices then. At the end of the Globex trade overnight, these quotes are provided by Bar Chart. And Suzanne alluded to this a little bit ago, that we had a lower trade, but not by much. It was just quietly lower, I guess you would say. July corn finished a half-cent lower this morning at 5.86 3/4. December was unchanged. It closed at 5.20 in the overnight trade. Meanwhile, in the soybeans, you had July down just a half-cent at 13.24. November new crop, though, dropped 5.5 cents at 11.79 And then on the wheat market, well, what can you say about wheat? It's just having a real hard time digging out of a hole here. You have July wheat 1 3/4 lower in Chicago at 604.5. In Kansas City, July finished the night session 7 lower at 805 1/4. In spring wheat in Minneapolis, you had July down 2.5 cents at 796.5. And in cotton, you had July up 11 points, but you had December down 33 points, down below 80 cents at 79.95. The only thing, Brian, I can say is that sometimes on a long holiday weekend during the growing season, sometimes that can mark a change in direction of the market. Do you think that'll happen at all?
Well, we hope so. We've we've tried to bounce off the lows in the corn market, so it's a positive sign that the market's starting to react to maybe some of this dryness that is impacting a lot of the Midwest. And these forecasts don't have a lot of rain for the next week and a half. Then there's chances of rain after that, but that's going to be very critical because we're into the first and second weeks of June, which is going to be heavily dependent upon moisture to get that crop really growing and off to a good start. So we're off to a decent start. It's weather during June that's going to be so critical to this crop and prices.
Okay, we'll take a look at the beef and pork export numbers and see what they held this morning in just a moment. Okay, now let's take a look at our beef and pork exports with a little help from Brian Hoops. On the beef number, what did we have this past week? Well, we sold 18,300 tons, and we had pork at 29,200 tons. All right, Brian, I believe that beef number was a small improvement over last week. The pork number may be a slight decline from last week, but all in all things considered, they were pretty close, right?
Yeah, I don't think these beef or pork numbers is going to sway the market really in one way or the other. We had cold storage numbers that'll probably give us some direction early part of this trade this morning. Cattle trade is going to get some direction from the cash markets, which were stronger. Dress trade a couple dollars higher. Live trade in the Southern Plains at least $1 higher, and probably going to see a little bit of additional cleanup trade coming today and into next week. So there's some positive as far as the cash markets go. Our coolers are getting depleted of beef supplies, which it tells us that there's very strong demand out there for our beef and that the packers need to refill those coolers at some point. We don't really have that situation in the pork, whereas the cold storage numbers showed an increase from last month and year ago levels in the pork supplies.
Yeah, speaking of the cold storage numbers, they came out, and I wanted to recap the cold storage report here for frozen red meat supplies. USDA said that they were just barely unchanged, slightly more than what we had a month ago, but the supplies were down 5% from 1 year ago. Meanwhile, on the beef inventory, it looks like compared to a month ago, we were down 6%, and from a year ago, we were down 16%. And then on the pork side, same old story. Those inventories were 6% higher than a month ago and 6% higher than 1 year ago as well. All right. Well, Brian, I appreciate you joining us here. Just a quick question for you. We know that there will be no daytime session on Monday because of Memorial Day, so the markets are closed. Do the markets trade Monday night?
Yeah, it's a good question. They do trade normal hours on Friday, so no change on Friday. No trade Sunday night or all day Monday, but Monday evening, 7 p.m., the grain markets will reopen with livestock Tuesday morning, 8:30 a.m. Central Time.
Well done. Wow, you covered all the bases there all at one shot. That was excellent. I will say 7 p.m. Central Time when we get underway with the Globex trade on Monday evening. So be prepared for that. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you have a very pleasant holiday weekend, a 3-day weekend for everybody. So take care of yourself, and we'll talk with you again. Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions. He is in Springfield, Missouri. So